Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. So, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm like super nervous. But God's gonna speak a good word tonight, hopefully. So, let's go. All right. We're gonna start off talking about dance marathon. Hey, all right. So how many of you have done dance marathon with me during my 4 years at UCLA? That's right. Okay, yeah, I see you all. Okay, not that many, but how many of you have moraled? Yeah, that's right. So for those of you who don't know, or you're like, what is this dancing marathon thing? So Dance Marathon is this really cool event put on by Pediatric AIDS Coalition. Don't worry, I'm not pitching just for that. Like, this whole talk isn't going to be about that. But yeah, it's this really awesome and fun event where we raise money and awareness for the fight against pediatric AIDS. And so what you do is you form a team, you raise a lot of money, and you stand on your feet without sitting for 26 whole hours. You don't sleep. You do eat, which is nice. But yeah, it's like a marathon. It's literally a marathon where you don't run. It sounds amazing. And so I've done dance marathon my last 4 years at UCLA, as you can see. I've had many wonderful team members. And so it's this really cool event where you like start off super, super pumped. So like everyone runs in and you're, okay, well, we don't do that anymore. But like before you would run through this giant tunnel and like enter into like Poly Pavilion. And then there'd be DJs like playing music and you're just like enjoying it. And you're like, yeah, I can do this whole thing. 26 hours, no big deal. Like I could stay awake for that long. I do that for all my midterms anyway. But then you hit like hour, let's say 9. So hour 9, you know, you've been dancing for a while. You've like heard a few of the songs repeated, so you're kind of like, but you're still having fun because you have a really awesome team and, you know, they're feeding you. There's like entertainment, there's live performances by people. But then you hit like hour, let's say 16. Yes. Okay. So hour 16, it's like getting kind of late in the night and you're just like, okay, I've been dancing, I'm running out of dance moves, I've been doing the same ones, I think my team knows that I'm like out of ideas. And there's this thing that happens called the vigil. I don't know if you all have heard about it, but it happens at 3 a.m. every single time. Best time for like something really serious and, you know, moving. So something happens called the vigil, and it happens at 3 a.m. and you listen to people share about their experiences with pediatric AIDS. Some of them are survivors. Some of them are still battling. Some of them have lost people to it. But it's really, really, really hard to focus because your feet hurt. And it's really, really hard to be like, yeah, I'm like doing this because it's a good cause and like I believe in this and I raise money for this and like, wow, like God's gonna use these resources, this research to like touch people. You're literally just like, I wanna sleep. People are sharing these heartbreaking stories, but you just can't bring it to you can't bring yourself to focus. And it's like, you're losing steam, you're like, why did I sign up for this? I'm tired, I want to sleep, my feet hurt, the food isn't that good anymore, like all these different things. And you're just like, I kind of regret signing up for this. I don't know why I did this. What was I thinking? And so you do this every year. This is like a repeating cycle if you do this all 4 years. And so I honestly think that like a lot of times our experiences with God can mirror our experiences at Dance Marathon. You start off really excited. You're like, yeah, like, I met God. God does cool things. Like, I want to serve him. I want to get to know him better. All these really awesome things. But then somewhere along the way, you're like, I'm tired. Oh man, like ministry is taking a lot of my time. Like, do I really want to wake up early to read my Bible? There's just like all these things. And like, I'm just being real. It's okay. It's okay. So I think that a lot of times we kind of start losing steam as we're doing this spiritual walk. We're like going and going and going and like, yeah, we've had like fun. Yeah, we've had like awesome experiences with God, but we get tired. And a lot of times when we get tired, we lose focus and we forget why we started this whole journey in the first place. you know, like when you're in that place where you're just like, I'm just cranky and everything sucks, like it's really hard to be like, oh, but God did a lot yesterday, or oh, but like I met God so powerfully a week ago. And so what I'm going to be talking about and what we're going to be seeing in Scripture today is how God reveals himself to us in those moments when we're like done. I think God actually has something really powerful for us, even in those times when we feel like, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore, I'm really tired and I just want to quit. So why don't you join me as I read this Scripture. So this is from not Isaiah. Well, this is from 1 Kings. I'm not even talking about Isaiah at all, okay? This is from 1 Kings chapter 19, and it's a story about Elijah, different guy. So we'll be reading it in sections, and I'll start off with the first section, and then we'll kind of go from there. Okay, so this is the word of God. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, "So may the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." Then he was afraid. He got up and fled for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah. He left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. "It is enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the broom tree and fell asleep. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." He looked, and there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him, and said, "Get up and eat, otherwise the journey will be too much for you." He got up and ate and drank. Then he went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God. At that place he came to a cave and spent the night there. So I'll give us a little bit of context so we kind of understand where this story is starting from. So Elijah is a prophet. So this means that he is a man of God. In the Old Testament, God would speak to his people through prophets and like give them his word, give them direction, give them warnings, whatever. So this is basically Elijah's job, and this is what God has called him to. Elijah is a prophet during a difficult time. So Israel is being ruled by this guy named King Ahab and this woman named Queen Jezebel. So these two are an interesting pair because they both like do not respect God at all. They have their own false gods from I think like Phoenicia, and this guy's name is Baal. And so right before this, Elijah just received a word from God, and he was like, or God was like, "Yo, Elijah, you got to challenge this Baal and tell people that I'm the real God." And Elijah was like, "Okay, cool." And so, okay, maybe not like that. I'm paraphrasing. But so then Elijah challenges the prophets of Baal to this like intense showdown. And so there's like all the prophets of Baal and just Elijah, because all the other prophets of God have been killed by Jezebel or they're in hiding. And so then there's like this intense battle, or it's not like a real battle. It's like a contest. Okay, that's the word. So there's a contest between these two where Elijah is like, "Hey, if your God, Baal, sends fire down, then he's real. But if my God sends fire down, then he's real." And so the prophets are like, yeah, let's do it. And then Elijah's like, "All right, you go first." And then they're like, "Okay." So they spend like most of the day like going like, "Baal, please, fire." And then okay. Like, nothing happens. I don't know. Elijah's like, "Is he asleep?" And they're like, "We don't know." And then Elijah's like, "All right, my turn." So he's like, "Hey, you, can you like help me and grab some water? I'm going to pour some water out. And then I'm going to ask God to send down fire, because my God is so powerful. He can send down fire that like even consumes water." And so then they're just like, "Okay." And then they do it. And he's like, "God, please show the Israelites that you are the legit God." And then like, boom, fire. Okay, so that's what happens right before this. Okay, but now we're at this part. So, I mean, like, the rest of the story, you can see Ahab, king, tells Jezebel, queen, what Elijah did, and, like, they're pissed. And Elijah is, like, scared. I feel like it's legitimate. Jezebel just basically threatened his life very seriously with like a time deadline. And he's terrified. He's like, shoot, I got to get out of here. And so Elijah runs. And I think when I read this story, I'm like, yo, Elijah, like, God just sent down fire. Like, why are you running? But I think that his fears are very legitimate. Like, someone just threatened his life. And even though God had sent this impressive display of fire, like, now he's kind of on his own. And so Elijah runs. He takes off and flees into, well, first he runs to Judah, which is like, I should have put a map, but it's really, really far from where he started. So he's like traveling for like a long time. I know it's not like communicated as well in this passage, but he's been running for a while. So he makes it to Beersheba. He leaves his servant. So now he's like completely isolated, and he goes a day into the wilderness. So he's in the wilderness, and he like sits down after traveling for another day, and he's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. He's like so raw in his emotions. He's just like, I want to die. And I think sometimes we like think about like, oh, well, where does mental health fit into the Bible? What about like suicide, things like that? Like, this is literally how, this is like an example of mental health and suicide in the Bible. Like, Elijah literally wanted to die. And I think stepping into that reality and like feeling what he felt like makes this story come alive. Like, he was at such a low place that he just didn't want to do this anymore. He feels hopeless. Maybe he felt like a failure because he just was used by God for such an impressive, like, awesome display of God's power, and the king and queen are still just like, we hate you, we want to kill you. There's no like, oh, but your God's cool. Nothing. He feels tired, like probably physically tired because he's been running for so long, and he feels really defeated. I think that what Elijah is feeling is actually really relatable to a lot of us in this room. I don't know where you all are at spiritually, mentally, but I can say that for myself, this story like really hits home. This past year has been hard, and that's kind of like a simple understatement. I think there have been a lot of events that took place that were hard for our fellowship, for our nation, for our campus. There have been a lot of personal things that have happened in each of our lives that might have shaken things up for us. Like, maybe we lost a loved one. Maybe we had to go through a really difficult transition and it feels just like everything's crazy. Maybe our mental health just sucked this year. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, it just took a dive and things were really hard. So I just wanted to share a personal story. This year, one of the things that was really hard for me was leadership. Oh man, it was really tough. Okay, so I have been a leader with InterVarsity for 3 years now. I guess if you include like spring quarter of freshman year, like 3 years and 2 months or something. I don't know. And, there have been ups and there's been downs, but this year was the hardest by far. I felt like one of the reasons why this year was so hard is because relationships with people were just not going the way that I had hoped for. A lot of the people that I was leading or that I was entrusted to lead had conflict with me or felt tension with me, or I don't know, just like it was just hard to be in that like team and trying to lead that. I felt like a failure a lot because it felt like I wasn't able to provide them with what they needed from God. I felt like me as a person just sucked because I don't know, like was unlikable, or I hurt them and broke trust. And I just felt like a failure. I felt like I didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, why am I doing this? Everything's hard and it sucks, and like people don't even like me. And so I did what Elijah did, like figuratively. I ran. I couldn't quite run into the wilderness the same way he did, but I ran from my responsibilities, and I ran from opening myself up to community. I really lost the motivation to be present and to lead with integrity and to lead by example, because I don't know, I was like, I failed already, so why should I keep trying? And I was afraid of failing again, because I was like, well, I screwed up this time. People probably expect for me to screw up again. And so when I do, I'm just like continuing this like cycle of failure that I hate. And so I'll just like stay far away from it. I think that's probably better for me. And even after all of my powerful experiences of God, just like Elijah, like he just experienced God like so powerfully. And I've had my fair share of really cool encounters with God too. I still felt like I don't want to do this anymore. And it's just too hard. I think that something that I want to speak to everybody in the room is that like it's okay to feel that, and it's okay to feel like I don't think I can do this anymore. I feel like I just want to quit. Like Elijah felt this. He's like this really awesome prophet of God, and he felt this too. And I think the really powerful message that I see from this scripture is that God takes care of us in our emotional lows. God, he's like the ultimate provider, and no matter where we are emotionally, mentally, he's got us. And so let's go back to Elijah's story. He's like sitting under the broom tree. He's like sad. He wants to die. And so he falls asleep. So he's sleeping. And, I think it's interesting how God lets him sleep. God just, is like, oh, you're tired? Like, yeah, rest. And then God sends an angel to give him food. Like, thank you, God. Elijah is hungry, I'm pretty sure, from running for so long. So God sends an angel to minister to him and bring him food and water. And then he sleeps again, and God allows him to rest. And I think through this interaction, I just see a lot of God's compassion and just how he really wants Elijah to know that it's okay to need space. It's okay to want to like step back a little and rest. And it's okay to need to recover and like, I got you. God sees Elijah's needs. He allows him to be in that space, but he also doesn't leave him completely alone. He doesn't say like, oh, okay, well, you want to take a break? Well, all right, talk to you in I don't know, whenever you're done. He like sends an angel to make sure that Elijah has what he needs. I think that's so encouraging and so powerful that God gives us the space that we need and still reassures us that we're not alone. It's like in our breaks, we're not isolated, and in our emotional lows, we're not completely alone. I think I really identify strongly with Elijah and his need to just like step back. I feel like sometimes there's shame in like wanting to like keep a distance, or sometimes there's shame in feeling like I need this for me, I need to take care of me. And I just want to reassure you all that that's not something to be ashamed of. That's something that God wants to grant you. He says, like, I care about you. I care about your well-being. I care about your emotional health, your mental health. And you don't have to sacrifice those things just because you need to do the things you think you're supposed to do. Like, take your space. I love you and I care about you. I'll give you what you need. So back to my story. For this year, I definitely kind of took a step back. Like, I didn't quit leadership or like quit community or anything. I was just kind of a little bit more distant, I'd say. And in that space, I think God gave me several things that made it so that I wasn't just kind of like hiding by myself without anything that I needed to continue on, but he actually gave me what I needed to, I guess, like survive, just like Elijah. So one of those things was he gave me the idea to go to counseling. So just like breaking any stigma of like mental health or like going to counseling, it's totally chill. It's really cool. You should all do it if you need it or if you want to. But yeah, so I heard from some trusted friends like Angelica, Leslie, Christine. They've all like recommended or told me about how counseling can be like a really positive experience. So yeah, there were other things that led me to want to go to counseling, but yeah, this year like culminated into me being like, I think I need it. So I went and it was awesome. Like we talk about, we talk about a lot of things, mostly about me, which is why I go. But we talk about like struggles in university. We talk about personal things like my family, my friendships and relationships and all that. And I think God really provided me with like what I said, like the space and the means that I needed to be able to just take care of myself and survive this really difficult season. Yeah, he gave me a counselor who's really patient and helpful and like helps me like untangle all of my long spiels of words. And he helps me shift my destructive thought processes into more helpful ones, more healthy ones. He also gave me gave me something unexpected. He gave me Mark Gong. Oh, Christ. Okay. Oh, God. Okay. Just give me a minute. Okay. All right, I'll bring it back. Sorry. Okay, I will explain. I'm explaining. So he gave me a really good friend, and he gave me a friend and a really good support during these difficult times. I felt like there were a lot of times where I seriously doubted myself and felt like I couldn't trust myself, and sometimes even hated myself. I don't know. It was really rough because I felt so like unconfident in who I was. But God gave me someone who would encourage me and who would remind me of my identity in Him. And it was definitely unexpected, but it was like a gift that I needed to help me get through this really difficult season. And lastly, He gave me my disciples and my mentees who bring me a lot of joy and laughter and like genuine friendship, which is awesome. So yeah, I mean, I've like failed a lot in leadership context, but I think God has redeemed that a lot just through the people I've been leading. Through them I receive hope, and I feel like I'm not defined by my failures and the ways that people get mad at me, or I screw up, or I forget to do things I'm supposed to do that are important for like discipleship context. And through them I get doses of joy to help get through the really difficult times when I just kind of want to disappear. I think that with all this, God has sustained me and given me all the things that I didn't know I needed in order to get through, my wilderness, which was this year. I think this is a really powerful illustration of God's patience and compassion for us when we hit these emotional. I want to make an assumption, but I don't think I'm the only one that hits emotional lows. I think that we all get to places where life just gets hard, and we don't want to continue, and we want to just disappear, and we feel like we don't even know why we're on this journey with God anymore anyway. But He's not a God who leaves us in our fears and our failures. He doesn't just say like, oh, you screwed up, peace out. He's with us. He provides us with what we need to survive. He sustains us with what we need to continue our journeys. For Elijah, that was sleep and rest and food. For me, it was, I guess, more so like community and friendship and people. Yeah, he doesn't just like tell us to get over it and get back to work. He doesn't say, oh, you've rested long enough, now stop. And like, what are you doing, you lazy butt? He doesn't say that. He gives us our space. He wants us to rest. He wants us to recover. He wants to restore us. And so I guess some questions for us to think about are, do we trust that God cares for us enough to allow us to take breaks when we need them? Do we believe that He can provide for us and give us sustenance we need when we're worried that we won't even survive? When we run and isolate ourselves because we're afraid, do we let ourselves see how God is with us even when we want to just disappear? Yeah, I think these are questions that I have for us and that I think God has for you. He wants to be someone who's with you in the emotional lows. He wants to show you that He can care for you and take care of you and provide you with all that you need. So why don't you just keep those questions in mind, and we'll continue looking at our passage and maybe come back to it at the end if you want more space to reflect on that. So why don't we continue reading and see how else God interacts with Elijah. Okay, so this is from verse 9. Then the word of the Lord came to him, saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." He said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Okay, so Elijah makes it to his destination. This is actually the same mountain that Jazzy preached about last week. So Moses was on the mountain of God, Mount Horeb. And then like God makes this promise to Moses. He's like, hey, like you and your descendants will come and worship on this mountain. And then like fast forward, like later in Exodus, I think like 19 or 24, Exodus 19 to 24. The Israelites do make it to Mount Horeb, and then Moses has another like crazy powerful experience with God. And so then now it's Elijah's turn. Maybe there was some in between, but now it's Elijah's turn, and he makes it to Mount Horeb. And he gets there, and God speaks to him and says, "What are you doing here?" And Elijah gives this like super indirect, slightly complaining response, but it's real. So he says, I've been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts." He's like, I worked my butt off. I've been trying so hard. Like, I put in so much effort. God, please. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And he's like, I've done all this for your people. I've done all this because nobody seems to recognize that you're still God. And like, I tried really hard, and still, people don't believe. People are the same. Nothing has changed. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away. He's like, God, I'm the only one. Like, everyone else is killed by Jezebel, or they're hiding in a cave because they think they're going to get killed by Jezebel. And like, I'm the only one out there doing your work, and now they're trying to kill me too. Like, God. This is how I imagine Elijah saying it. He might not have been so like whiny, but I think that his concerns were legitimate. I think it's fair to be scared and to be frustrated that nothing has changed. But I think God's response is pretty cool. So let's take a look at that. God says, go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by. Okay, so in In previous stories in the Old Testament, God would oftentimes show up through natural disasters. So, like, I mean, he's God of the universe, he created everything. So, a lot of times he would use these things to manifest his presence. So, like, in the example from last week with Jazzy, God showed up as a burning bush, so fire. He likes to use fire. So, like, Elijah's like, yes, fire. And then there have been like instances where God shows up in earthquakes. So like there was, I think it was in Exodus 18 or 19, God shows up as an earthquake and shakes the whole mountain. And they're like, that's God shaking that mountain. And there are just many instances of God using these like crazy natural disasters, like really scary, intense things to tell people like, I'm here, pay attention. And so then God's like, all right, I'm about to pass by, and Elijah is like ready. And so then there's this intense wind. It's like a wind so strong, it's splitting apart the mountain, it's breaking off the rocks. Like, it's probably really scary. Like, I don't know if you all remember, there's like this one tree in the quad outside Royce. You know what I'm talking about? Like, okay, there's a tree there, and it's huge. Like, okay. It's like this big. And then sometime in like winter quarter, there was intense wind and it just like straight up fell over. It just like got knocked over. I was like, shoot, what if someone was standing there? That's scary. But that's Elijah. He's standing in his cave and there's this intense wind and he's like, I'm gonna die. Or probably. I would think that if I were him. And he's like, okay, well, you know, that's how God shows up sometimes. He like shows up in ways that like may or may not kill people. But then that wasn't God. So like, okay. But then next is this earthquake. So I know we live in California and like earthquakes are a slightly more common thing, but I'd like to think it was still scary too. Like I don't think it was just like a it's over. Like, it's probably, okay, I don't know why I'm doing this. But like, yeah, there's this earthquake, and it's probably scary, but God wasn't in the earthquake. And then there's a fire. And like we've said, like, God shows up in fire. This is something recognizable. We've seen this in Scripture, but he's not there either. And so where's God? I think sometimes we read the Scripture and we're like, okay, wind pass, okay, earthquakes pass, okay, fire pass, okay, there's God, because he comes after the fire, because we know this. But Elijah didn't know this. Elijah wasn't at a place where he was like, and then after the fire is God, so I'll go outside then. I think he really had to be in a posture of like, is that God? Like, are you there? Oh, you weren't there. Like, is that you, God? No, that wasn't you still. Like, all right, this is you, still not you. And then comes a sound of sheer silence. So I'm reading from the NRSV version, and I really like the way to describe this, sheer silence. It's not a still small voice or a gentle whisper, it's silence. That was literally like, that was God being like, I'm here, but there was no whisper, there was silence. And I think it's like kind of silly when I do that. You're just like, why aren't you talking? But, you know, maybe that's how Elijah felt. He's like, traveled all this way, he shows up at the mountain of God, and God is silent. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a position where you like really, really wanted to receive from God. You really wanted to meet with him, and he doesn't say anything. You're like, I tried listening, got nothing. I tried praying with a friend, they got something, I didn't get anything. I don't know, I'm just like reading my Bible, and they're just words, like nothing is getting to me. So you try listening to worship songs like over and over and over, and you're like, this is like speaking truths of God, like God wants to speak to me, and you still feel like he's silent. I think it's scary. Silence is scary. So something that I do when I am in like awkward moments or like when there's like conflict or something is I don't know what to say. And so I like kind of just stop talking and Sometimes my hands go up, but usually it's just like awkward and silent. I'm just like, and then there's no dialogue. It's just silent, and it's uncomfortable. And then the other person is like, "Are you gonna talk? What does this mean? Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" Another example is sometimes I can be really spotty with my text responses. And so there's like periods of silence. Like, I'm sorry, many of you experienced this, I'm so sorry. But yeah, sometimes I just don't respond for like, a couple hours, couple days, I don't know. And there's silence. And then with that, you're left to just assume what's going on for the other person. When there's silence, there's uncertainty. When there's silence, sometimes there's fear. And when there's silence, there's a lot of times there's pain. There's hurt. Because what happens when God is silent? When God is silent, we're like, are you still there? Can you hear me? Did you hear my prayer? Do you still care about me? Do you exist? Am I just talking to myself? Is everyone else in here crazy? Like, I don't know. When God is silent, we begin to wonder, so does that mean that all those things that he did in the past were just my imagination? Does this mean he left? Am I alone? And these are scary thoughts. They're real thoughts. I've had them myself. Sometimes when I'm in sin and I feel like I can't hear from God because there's just like this separation and it feels so tangible. I'm like, am I alone? Why aren't you talking to God? Like, I'm sorry. I don't know if you're still there. Did I mess up so badly that you just left? Sometimes, and I don't know why. I'm like, I'm doing well, I think, I'm doing your work, everything should make sense, but you're not talking, and I really need you to say something. Nothing. And those times are scary. Those are the times when I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this, or God, are you ever going to talk to me again? Is it worth it to keep trying? Just nothing. But I think something that we can see from this passage and that we can learn from Elijah is that God is present even in the silence. He chooses to use silence to manifest his presence. He doesn't come when there's a crazy wind. He doesn't come when there's a crazy earthquake. He doesn't come when there's like fire. This doesn't mean that he won't come in those ways or that he hasn't come in those ways before. But in this story, in this interaction with Elijah, he chooses silence. But the silence doesn't mean he's not there. I think a lot of times, it's natural for humans to equate silence with absence. Silent, not there. Silent, can't hear me or just isn't paying attention. I think it's a natural, logical way of thinking. But God is doing something a little bit different in this passage. He's saying that in the silence, I'm here with you. In the silence, can you recognize me? In the silence, do you still trust me? And so, I think it's really cool that Elijah recognizes God in the silence. He covers his face and he goes inside. He sees that silence doesn't mean that there's no response from God at all. Silence is actually God showing up. And so, I want to also tell another personal story about God in the silence. This one's interesting. We'll see how it goes. So, last year, at SummerCon of my junior year, I was part of Prayer Sem. So Prayer Sem is for third years, and one of the things that you do is a day of silence and solitude. So I'm an extrovert. I was like, okay, honestly, I wasn't too scared about it. I was like, this is good. I talk all the time, so it'll be good to not. And so we have our day of silence and solitude. It's not mandated, but it's strongly encouraged. And so I spent most of the day doing productively silent things. I journaled, I prayed, I like watched the waves. I napped, I showered, I ate lunch with other people who were also silent. So we all ate together silently. That was fun. And then we went our separate ways and we were silent by ourselves again. And I think the whole day I had this thought in my head of like, I want to hear from you, God. So like me making this space of silence is great because then I won't be talking and so you can talk. Perfect. But you know, throughout the day, I still didn't really hear anything from God. It was mostly just like me functioning. I was like, you know, like being by myself is good. This is like, it's pretty chill, but I thought I would, you know, have some sort of cool spiritual revelation or deep healing and breakthrough or I don't know, something. But it was just mostly a chill day. And so then we're like, at the end of the day, it's about to be the main session, which is where we'll break our day of silence. And I'm like, I feel somewhat disappointed. I'm like, God, where were you? I made so much space for you, like literally the whole day. I didn't talk at all. You were supposed to talk. So then I went down to the water, and sat on that lifeguard chair, and I like watched the waves again, and I was just like, okay, well, you know, God, I guess it's okay that I spent the day by myself. Solitude is good. Yes. And then as I came to that conclusion, I felt like a light wind picking up. Then I was like, that's interesting. Okay, it's not interesting because, like, obviously, like, wind is a normal thing. But this wind was different, okay? It was like, I was sitting in the lifeguard chair and it felt like the wind was surrounding me. So I was like, it felt like I was in like a mini, not intense, like, cyclone, but not intense. And so then the wind is surrounding me and I'm like, okay. And then I hear a voice. And the voice says, I'm here. And I was like, whoa, did anyone else hear that? That's crazy. I think it was like one of my most significant moments with God ever, where I was sitting in the silence, I thought I was alone, but then God just like made me see that He was there with me. And as He said, I'm here, He also implied, like, I've been here. Like, you've been doing all your things in solitude, in silence, the whole day, by yourself, but actually you weren't by yourself. I was there with you. I didn't say anything, but it doesn't mean I wasn't there. And I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. This is like completely changing my idea of what it means to be intimate with God. And this is changing my perception of what it means to have a powerful experience with God. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean God says something that like shakes your world. Like, maybe life-transforming encounters with God just come with being in His presence. And I think that's kind of similar to Elijah's story. God alerts him to His presence through the silence. And Elijah sees it, and he goes out and he's ready to meet with God. So I think for us, it's like nice to hear this. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, even in the silence, I'm not alone. This is nice. But it's a little bit harder than that, I think, in reality. Like, a lot of times, silence can feel really, really painful. It can be really, really long. And you can feel really alone in it. I think I just want to say, like, I feel that, and it's real. A lot of times, silence is where we feel the loneliest. But also, I think sometimes it's in silence that we experience the presence of God the most. God's silence doesn't mean He doesn't care or that He's not with us. I think it's an invitation to enter into stillness with God and to be able to just be intimate with Him in a new way. I think it's cool how in the story God revealed His presence powerfully in the silence. And He gave Elijah an opportunity to like recognize that and to come out and to meet Him. I think I just like read that and I feel like sometimes we like need a little bit of God's silence. in order to know that like we're not just depending on him for his words or for all these things that are really good and that we like want to receive from him, but like his presence is with us. So yeah, I just want us to think about this question. Are we people who despair in the silence because we think it equates with the absence of God? I think it's easy to think that. But I wonder if God is trying to say that those two are not the same at all. And that even in the silence, I'm here with you. Yeah, so again, invitation to like sit on that, reflect on that, and then we'll finish up this passage and I'll give you space to respond to it at the end. And so, now we are at the very end of the passage, and this is from verse 13. Then there came a voice to him that said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He answered, "I've been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Then the Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael as king over Aram. Also you shall anoint Jehu the son of Nimshi as king over Israel. And you shall anoint Elisha son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah as prophet in your place. Whoever escapes from the sword of Hazael, Jehu shall kill, and whoever escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elijah shall kill. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." Ooh, okay, so God asks Elijah the same question, like exactly the same. What are you doing here? And Elijah gives exactly the same answer, word for word. And then after that, God says, "Go back." He tells Elijah to return the way he came from. Go back through the wilderness and to your own country where people are trying to kill you. Yeah, God, I think we might read this and be like, wow, God, that's kind of unsympathetic. That's not very nice. But I think what God is doing here is he is telling Elijah to go back the way he came from, but with a different set of circumstances. And so we see that God gives him specific commands about who to anoint as king and as his successor. He is bringing Elijah back to the beginning. So prophets were supposed to speak the word of God, they're supposed to anoint kings, and they were supposed to find people to partner with them in this. And God is basically bringing Elijah back to that original calling. He gives him a starting point. He says, this is where you go, this is what you do. And he's also giving him freedom to allow others to finish the work that he starts. God isn't saying, go and anoint these people as king and find your successor, and then make sure that the king and queen convert and recognize me as God, and get rid of everybody who doesn't believe or something like that. He doesn't say any of that. He actually just says, go, this is where you start, and I'm giving you people to partner with you to finish. He doesn't have to worry about ensuring the outcome because God tells him that he's not alone. So this is kind of bringing it back to my first story, where I was telling you all about feeling really discouraged by leadership and feeling really tired this year. So I think that for me, God has been giving me a renewed sense of calling. He's been saying to me that even though this year was hard, and even though the year is almost over, I think there's still something for you here. So this reminds me of 2 weeks ago, we had our last leaders meeting of the year. I didn't even go to that. And then we had area time after. And I was like, oh man, I have to lead area time. I love area time, sorry, I really do. But that day was just really rough for me. I was having an emotional low, I didn't really want to see people. But then some of the people on my team were like, no, we have to have area time. And I was like, okay, fine. So then we have area time, and we're like talking a little bit. I'm like just trying to get the job done. I'm like, bam, 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 these things we gotta do. Like, yeah, we can catch up, but nah, okay. It was a bad day for me. But then I was convicted by Melanie. God used Melanie to like make me not be whiny, basically. I think that at that point I was just kind of like, I'm done with this. You know, I'm a senior. There's 3 more weeks, and it's okay. You've done your part. Good job, Shannon. You survived. I think that was like literally my mindset. I was like, wow, like this is a rough year, and I made it. Whoo, props. But then Melanie was like, I feel like we've all given up. And I was like, ah, shoot, she right. I was like, oh no, like that's not what I wanted to communicate to her, and that's not what I want this year to feel like. And yeah, there was like we spent some time talking. All that stuff, and I felt like what God was saying through Melanie is like, hey, I've given you your space to recover. I've given you what you needed to rest and to be restored. Now you're just hiding because you're tired and you are lazy. And I was like, oh, this is true. And so I think what I'm reading from this passage and what I was able to receive from Melanie that night is that God actually brings us comfort by reminding us of our original purpose. And I think that it was easy to lose sight of the vision He had given me at the beginning. Leaders Retreat, fall or summer 2016, was like really powerful. I think that for a lot of us who were there, we were able to experience the presence of God, like God's Spirit speaking over each of us. But with everything that happened this year, like, where did that go? I don't know. Like, for me, I just forgot. For me, I felt like maybe those experiences weren't as valid as my current experience. But God was using Melanie to remind me, like, no, those were real experiences, and the vision that I gave you at the beginning isn't gone just because the year was hard. I was like, oh, that's a hard word to receive, God. I don't know how to feel about this. But I think similar to how God speaks to Elijah, God used Melanie and my team to remind me that I'm not alone. So like when you see Elijah's complaint, he's like, I'm alone, I'm the only one left, they're trying to kill me too. That's kind of how I felt. I was like, God, I feel alone. I don't want to do ministry by myself. It feels really hard to like carry a lot of the burdens. But God reminded me that I'm actually not alone. I have a team who I love a lot and who supports me really well and shares the work with me. Beyond just the Dykstra team, I have a larger leaders team who also partners with me in doing God's work. And beyond the leaders team, I have a fellowship who partners with me in doing God's work and living out His calling. I think that was really easy to forget when I was like focused on like the hard things that have been going on for me personally. I think it was similar for Elijah. He was like, I'm alone, everyone's dead or hiding in caves. And God is like, well, then go and find Jehu, go and find Hazael, go and find Elisha, who will be your successor, who will share the work with you and continue it even after you're gone. I think that's what God was reminding me in that interaction with Melanie, where, sorry, this is a lot of pressure for you, it's really not supposed to be, but even after I'm gone, there's going to be somebody, not just Melanie, but many people in this room who are going to continue the work that God has started. And so, yeah, I feel like for a lot of us, maybe some of you identified more with the first section of the passage, but maybe some of you are at a point where you're like, I just kind of want to leave. I'm just done. And it's been a hard year, so like, I'm fine with things the way they are, and I'm ready to peace out. And I think it's like a totally normal, natural way to feel, especially if you're a senior. It's like, oh, we are almost done. But I think the invitation is that God might still have something for you in the next week and a half of school, in the next week of finals, potentially at SummerCon, if you're considering going. God doesn't only provide us with rest and sustenance that we need to survive, but He also gives us clear actions to take when we're ready. He says that we're not alone. His presence is with us, and He provides us with partners, with community, with people who are doing this with us. He reminds us of what He spoke to us originally, and He recommissions us. So I felt like I was out of commission for like a really long time. I was like, I need to be prepared. I need to just like take a break. And then, I guess, a few weeks ago, God was like, I think you're ready to be put back. I was like, no, I'm not, please, no. But I think He was saying, like, it's time. And He's been actually changing my heart too as this comes. Like, I've started to get excited again for things like Senior Catalyst, next week. And like, I started to get excited for SummerCon. I think God's going to meet us and do crazy things there. I've started to get excited about just like random daily things that I'm doing. Like, wow, I get to write this talk. Sometimes I'm not that excited, but like God has been pushing me to see the excitement, to see the good that He's doing in all these things. This reminds me of Meldon's talk from a few weeks ago, where he says that we should be people who call purpose out of each other. And I think that's true. Like, Melanie called purpose out of me in that moment. And God is calling purpose out of each of us. That's what He does. He's like the OG purpose caller, because He created us and He gave us our purpose. So, like, I think that's what He wants to speak to us and remind us that, you know, we have a calling, we have a purpose. Sometimes we forget it. It doesn't necessarily mean that that purpose is leadership. It doesn't have to be formal leadership. But I think just being people who take risks. That's like what we learned at the beginning, right? Through Mark 1. Like, take risks, step out of faith. God is calling us to be people who reconcile. That's been hard. I have actually started to have some of those hard conversations with people that I've hurt and that I felt hurt by. And it's hard. It's awkward. But God calls us to be reconcilers. Are we allowing God to call our original purpose out of us? Or are we just kind of comfortable with hiding and, you know, just like coasting by, like slipping under the radar until this year's done? Do we allow God to do this in our times of despair? And when we feel discouraged and done, are we willing to let God take us back to the place where we started? The place where He intended for us to know Him and to do His work? Will we receive His comfort in the forms of purpose and mission and community again? These are some of the questions that I have for you that I want you all to think about. I feel like there was a lot from this passage. It was a long passage, so props to you all for sticking with it. But I think the way that God's Word is living and active, the way that it continues throughout the generations, is that people respond to it. You can read words on a page and, you know, it's like the Word of God. But if you're not willing to respond to it, to allow yourself to engage with it in a personal way, then it's just going to be words on a page. So why don't we move into a time of response, and I'll lead us through it a little bit, but I want us to really press in on several of the points. So first of all, I want this to be a time of response that's silent. Because I think that a lot of times we can allow ourselves to get distracted during our time of response by, moving really quickly into like, oh, I just want to like worship. And that's not a bad thing. Like, worshiping is obviously a really good thing. But I want us to sit in whatever place we're at with God. And so points from this message. One is that God takes care of us in our emotional lows. 2 is that God is present even in the silence. And 3 is that God comforts us by reminding us of our original purpose. And so, when you think about those things, do you believe it? It's one thing to hear it. Do you believe it? Secondly, if you believe it, have you experienced it? It's one thing to believe it in theory. It's another thing to actually experience it. So I want us to take time to be honest with God and with ourselves. Maybe the question for you is, what are you doing here? God says, what are you doing here, Elijah, twice. Maybe God is saying, what are you doing here? And then he calls you by name. And maybe your answer is similar to Elijah's. You're like, I've worked so hard, I've tried so hard, and nothing has changed, and I feel alone, and everything seems hopeless. And maybe that's your answer. And God wants to interact with you about that. Maybe you're like, I don't know, God, I don't really know why I'm here. Time to interact with him about that. I think that God wants to speak to us. I think he has words that he wants to say, those words of comfort, words of inspiration, direction. But I think sometimes he doesn't say anything. And the invitation there is to recognize his presence even in those moments. Your questions and your pain, they're not being dismissed by God if he's silent. But he wants to meet with you first. He wants to just sit with you. So no matter where you are on your journey with God, finally take a moment to be still. You can interact with God about some of these points or some of the questions that I brought up. And I'll come back up and lead us into time of prayer and application. So go ahead and do that. So I know there wasn't that much time to just be silent and respond, but I want to pray for some people right now. So I'll be praying for 3 groups of people, and feel free to stand up multiple times, or I don't know. But also, if you feel moved to stand and to respond because God is doing something in you, then I strongly encourage you to do so. I know it can feel scary. I know you can be like, I'm in the front row. I could be the only one, I can't tell. But who cares? If you want prayer, if you feel like this is a word God is speaking to you, then I encourage you to stand and receive it. So the first group I want to pray for is people who feel spent. You're tired, you feel defeated, you're like, I don't know why I'm here, it just is hard. And you want to ask for God to take care of you and to give you what you need in that space. So if this is you, why don't you stand and I'll pray for you. Why don't you hold your hands out and I'll pray for you. Lord God, we just acknowledge that sometimes life is really hard. Sometimes the places that we're at feel so hopeless. And we feel alone and we're not sure what we're doing. But God, we just ask for your compassion and your providence for us, that you would give us what we need. Even things that we don't know that we need, would you provide them for us? Would you come and bring us comfort, remind us of your presence, and just give us freedom to want space to rest and want to recover and heal. Would you break any shame that might be attached with this and just allow us to be, just to be okay with where we're at, and to ask for you to come into those spaces with us. And so we ask this in your name, Jesus. Amen. Thanks. The second group of people that I want to pray for are people who want to hear from God but be silent. People who might have been wanting to hear from God for a long time but just haven't gotten anything. People who are wondering if he's still there or what does this mean. So if this is you, why don't you stand up and I'll pray for eyes to recognize his presence and also for him to come in a way that we can see and feel. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, silence feels so isolating. And in the silence, we're not really sure where you are or what you're doing. But God, the word that you've spoken to us today is to remind us that you're with us, even when you feel distant. And so we ask for eyes to recognize you. We ask for hearts that are ready to receive. And we ask for peace in our situation, in still not hearing from you. Would we not let this time of silence equal your absence in our minds, but would we know that you're with us and that, that you want to reveal yourself to us in a new and intimate way that we might not have experienced before. So we ask for that, God, and we ask for you to show us that you're with us and come in a way that we understand. In your name, Jesus, amen. The last group of people that I want to pray for are people who feel like you've lost sight of your original purpose. Somewhere along the way, you're just like, I'm really ready to just not do this anymore. Maybe you're transitioning out, maybe it's just been a tough year and you're like done. Or maybe you're in the same place and you're doing the same things, but you still lost sight of your original purpose. If that's you, I want to pray for you and ask for God to recommission you and renew the vision that He gave you from the start and provide you with partners to complete the work. So if that's you, why don't you stand and I'll pray for you. Let's pray. Lord God, it's really hard to remember our original purpose sometimes. Sometimes the things you call us into are just things that we don't naturally want to do. And sometimes our circumstances around us make it seem like what you created us for just isn't worth it. And so in these moments, God, we just ask for renewed vision. We ask for, just reminders of who you created us to be at the very beginning. People who follow you, people who follow your call into risky action. So we ask for you to recommission us, to send us out again with purpose, and also to provide us with partners so that we're not doing this alone. Would you send people around us, provide us with community? We love you and we love the purpose that you've given to us. Would you just restore that in us? In your name, Jesus, amen. So before I invite the worship team back up for another song, I just want to give us some practical applications. I think a lot of times you can hear a message and you're like, oh, okay, like, I got prayer, this is good, but what do I do now? And then it kind of stays in the room word to be carried with us as we go. So some practical applications are: consider doing a day of silence or solitude. And if that feels really hard because finals is coming up, then set aside a chunk of time. I think that silence and solitude can be a good place to recognize that God is with us in every single little thing that we do. That He's with us throughout the day, in all the mundane or the special solitude day tasks and things that we do. Another practical application for when it's hard to recognize God in His silence, and for when we don't know if He's with us, I think it would be helpful to have little reminders for us. So, example would be like a cool artsy graphic of a Bible verse that you use as your phone lock screen. Like, you look at that all the time. And I think it's a way to just remember that God is with you, and to be encouraged, even when you're texting during class. I don't know. Another thing to consider is taking time to remember and to reflect on ways that He's shown His presence in the past, and give thanks for those and take comfort in those, because He has been real before, and He's still real now. It's just sometimes we forget. And so, encouragement to do that. And for those of us in the room who might not have experienced God before, then the challenge is similar to what Jazzy challenged us into last week, a challenge to pray and to ask and to seek. There's the option of the 7-day prayer challenge, where you persistently pray every single day for 7 days. Or you could find a prayer partner, or you could pray with more than one partner. But I think even if you haven't been hearing from God, even if it feels hard in the silence, making space to listen daily and choosing to be committed and persistent, I think God could use that space, and He could do something with that. The last practical application is really doable and really simple. Is tomorrow, Daniel Blow is hosting a small group, and we're watching a movie called Silence. Wow, I wonder what it's about. It's about God's silence. And so this small group we're going to be watching a movie and then discussing it afterwards. And it's talking about faith and mission and martyrdom and God's silence. Daniel Blow, Daniel Kim, highly recommend this movie. And it'll be a good space if you want to continue engaging with this topic with people. So, I'll invite the worship team up now. If you want more information about this, go ahead and contact Daniel Blow. So I highly encourage you all to do some of these things. Not just because I brainstormed this and thought it would be relevant, but actually because it could be good. If you stood up and responded and received prayer, then I really encourage you to turn to a neighbor, talk to someone, and tell them what you decided to do. If you didn't stand and receive prayer, but you still feel like you want to respond in some way, I encourage you to do some of these things as well. We can take this time to worship.